Welcome to the Monday, May 13th, Killable Hills Board of Commissioners meeting. We will call this meeting to order, and if you would please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And if you would now join us, please, for a moment of silence. Thank you. First up this evening is the agenda approval. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any others? Great. Okay, we will move on to public hearings. We have 2 public hearings this evening, and we will turn it over to our town attorney to conduct these hearings.
Mayor,
Thank you.
following rules of procedure will apply to these hearings. A public notice of each hearing was published in the newspaper and posted on the town bulletin boards in accordance with statutory requirements for the subject matter. A copy of the public notice has been filed with the town clerk for entry into the official record of the hearing. The town clerk will record all oral comments in a concise and brief manner. Written statements shall be recorded in a similar manner and made part of the record of the hearing and shall be submitted in full to the town clerk. If speaking, please limit your comments to matters that are relevant to the issue to a time period of 3 minutes. A 5-minute exception will be made if there is a spokesperson for a group or if your statement is submitted in writing to the town clerk. All speakers, please come forward to the microphone so that your comment can be taped. There shall be no debates during these hearings. Please identify yourself when you come forward, name and address. First public hearing will please come to order. This hearing is called for the purpose of the Killable Hills Board of Commissioners to consider the following. A proposed amendment to Chapter 153 zoning, Chapter 153.080 electrical and communication services, clarified communication, emphasis added, services. The following individuals have indicated a desire to speak, and they will be called upon in numerical order.
I don't have any.
Thank you. Thank you, Clerk. Since there's nobody who has signed up, is there anybody from the audience who would like to speak on public hearing number 1? None. We can turn it back to the board.
Open the floor for discussion for the board. Pretty straightforward.
I don't think there's much we can really do.
No, I mean, this one's really just cleaning up the language, so, yeah, right.
Catching up with the times, I suppose.
We have more than just telephone now as far as communication, so. Would anyone like to go ahead and make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the proposed amendment to Chapter 153 zoning, 153.080 electrical and communication services, to clarify communication services. The Board of Commissioners find this amendment, electrical and communication services, to clarify communication services, is consistent with all the comprehensive plans or other officially adopted plans of the town of Killable Hills that are applicable, and the amendment is reasonable and in the public interest because it updates the language to current communication services.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great, thank you.
Second public hearing will now please come to order. This hearing is called for the purpose of the Killable Hills Board of Commissioners to consider a proposed amendment to Chapter 153 zoning, Chapter 153.075C, telecommunication towers. Use guidelines and dimensional requirements to modify setbacks for monopole towers. The following individuals have indicated they have a desire to speak. Anybody, Ms. Merritt?
No, sir.
Nobody has signed up, so would anyone from the audience like to speak on this?
Okay, back to the board for discussion. Discussion, questions on this one relating to the monopole and the language changing setbacks.
Just want to verify with the attorney that there's not really a whole lot we can do because it's determined by the state. I mean,
Depending on the jurisdiction is what it's gonna come down to. So, ultimately the way these things are, and it's getting a little more in-depth, if you will, but if it's within the state right of way, I have presented a memo, there are certain things that perhaps could occur if a new tower, if you will, comes along. But however, really, what we're more focused on would be the city-maintained streets, things of that nature, and what authority do we have in that particular case to regulate. And Meredith, you may have some more input on that. Like I said, I'm getting a little bit deeper into the topic than what we really need to for this particular hearing.
I'll just say that was more related to the first amendment that y'all just worked on, the communication services, changing telephone to communication services. That deals a lot with the small pack cell service that are being put around town. This current amendment is about like the big pole, like the ring that's on top of the water tower now. What they're trying to do is put that on a monopole and to get it off of the water tower. So they're related but totally different. And one deals with underground and utilities, which was your first amendment that y'all approved, which gives us a little bit more authority on our streets about what can be placed above ground and below ground. And this one, the amendment that you're looking at now is strictly dealing with the structural aspects of monopole that will have multiple cell service antennas like you see on top of the water tower. And the amendment is intended to bring up to date the structural advancements that have happened in the past decade since, actually 20 years since we adopted this ordinance. They've come a long way in engineering these types of facilities. So this amendment is just a reflection on the advancement in the structural design of a monopole that we're actually getting ready to build ourselves, which will have multiple carriers on it versus the little small, I say small, 5G packs that are being placed along the bypass on existing poles right now.
Meredith, is the monopole akin to what's down in Southern Shores at the
It's
V is what I'm calling
Yes.
it there when you're driving down Ocean Boulevard?
it's gonna be similar, but it's gonna have antennae on the outside.
Okay. You know which one I'm talking about,
Yeah,
the really tall white one.
and I missed on the first one, but I was more concerned about the issue brought up in a previous meeting and just,
Right.
it seemed we had nowhere to go with it, but
I thought that was the track you were heading on, which is why I was, even though I really wasn't a number two here, just speaking in terms of, the FCC is definitely pushing this, pushing these regulations down the throats of state governments and local governments. So you're correct, there's a limited amount of restrictions, if you will, that can be placed on improving telecommunications.
But we may be able to prevent any new poles going up on our existing right of ways. That's the interpretation that we've come up with, is that if there's a pole already there, that there's not much we can do about them co-locating on an existing pole, but putting up new poles is not. It is something that we can control if it's within the town's right of ways, not states or anything like that, so.
I think that was my biggest thing, is I just wanna make sure we don't do anything today that'll limit us later if we do have options for
That's-
alternative
Correct.
locations, and,
And I think we've actively tried to prevent that, if you will, from cutting out any of the, anything that we may be able to regulate. For example, let's make sure we're not adopting anything that restricts that or prevents it in the future. So it would not on either of these proposals. That is true.
thanks, both of y'all.
Other discussion? Okay, would you like to make a motion on this proposed amendment?
I'll make a motion that we approve this amended. The Board of Commissioners finds that the amendment to ordinance 153.075C, communication towers, use guidelines and dimensional requirements to modify setbacks for monopole towers is consistent with all comprehensive plans and other officially adopted plans for the town of Kill Hills that are applicable, and that the amendment is reasonable in the public interest because it provides incentives for co-location of services on the tower and the setbacks are modified to agree with laws and requirements.
Great, there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you.
One quick question is, what is the fall zone requirement for a monopole like that? How much space does the state generally want around it for a potential fall? Is it just the height of it, or is it radius, or?
That's what we just.
It was in there.
That's
Yeah,
what
so
we
it
just
was.
did, is, in the event structural load exceeds the design or resulting failure collapse, all portions of the tower will fall within the identified fall zone, and that no building structures on adjacent zoning lot lines within said fall zone. Such certification shall consider potential future structures which may be constructed on adjacent lots, and it's gotta be sealed by a licensed engineer. So each design, depends on the monopole design, but the engineer is gonna tell us what their specific failure rate, or, your failure zone is, or fall zone.
Okay.
And when they certify that fall zone, they have to show that there's no structures that it can hit on, not on your own property, cause that's your fault, but on the adjacent properties, right? And it includes, if that property's empty right now, it would include any building that could be built there within the building envelope that is established by our setbacks. So that will all be certified by a licensed engineer, and I think it depends on the type of pole that's being installed.
Okay.
Okay, this brings us to the first time set aside this evening for public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone who wishes to address the board on any topic of their choosing. Mary, did we have anyone sign up on the list? Okay, we'll call from the floor if you wish to speak. We will call on you and ask that you approach the podium. If you're speaking as an individual, keeping your comments to approximately 3 minutes. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, approximately 5 minutes. Is there anyone that wishes to speak at this public? I see 2 hands. Who wants to go first?
Sue says aye.
Okay, Colleen, welcome.
Hello, Colleen Almany, 900 9th Avenue. I wanted to give you all an update and let you know that the Neighborhood Watch group is still plugging forward. We have just about completed the entire neighborhood behind Food Lion. Just a lot of footsteps, so we're having a good time doing it. Again, nothing but positive responses from the folks that we get to talk to, and we actually had somebody leave a comment on our Facebook page and said, I'm sorry I wasn't home, but I got your flyer and I joined your group because of it. So good things are still continuing to happen. Our monthly meeting is this Thursday in this room at 6:30. Our guest speaker is Chris Turner from North Carolina Wildlife, who's gonna give us his lowdown on coexisting with coyotes, and everyone is invited to join. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Sue?
Hi, Sue Kelly, 211 Sea Village Lane, on behalf of the Community Appearance Commission. Just wanted to announce that our next meeting is Thursday, the 23rd, in this room at 8:30 in the morning, and as you all know, the public is invited. We will have a Kick Butt Subcommittee meeting date shortly, after we are cleared as to which evenings this room would be available for that. And I want to say thanks very much to the town for the video, and to Benny Baldwin, who put it together. I think it looks good. Everybody looks good but me, but then of course, isn't that how we always feel about when we see ourselves on TV? But thank you very much. The video is great. I think I think it does its purpose really well. So thank you very much for doing that for us.
Thanks, Sue. You look great, by the way.
No, you're just saying that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this public comment time? Okay. Response to public comment, just thank you both ladies, appreciate all the work that you do for the town. Anyone else? Any comments? Alright, we will move on then to old business, and Meredith, are you gonna lead us through? This is the memo and recommendation to changes to the Chapter 11 special events, charitable events.
Yes, ma'am. Based on the conversation had at the last meeting and several meetings that we've talked about the special events, rather than write a new ordinance, I wanted to bring some of what we got out of it to make sure that that was the proper guidance, so that we could bring you back, what the board desires to see. And, we had 3 bullet points. One was to allow businesses to use 10%. That's a number we plugged in. We're ready for guidance on that. Of the required parking for a special event while remaining open for regular business. To allow businesses to have outdoor sales, much like yard sales, with town approval during other community events such as bike week, car shows, or marathon. Allow them to use 10% of their required parking without disruption to the regular business hours. That could be charitable or non-charitable, and you would limit the business location to 4 times per year, no more than 5 consecutive days. That's consistent with what we allow single-family dwellings to do for yard sales. So that's why we plugged it in there, just for consistency with kind of what we allow for people to sell their stuff. And then to modify the application for simplicity, including more instructions and being very clear that some of the items in the application may not be applicable to their event. A few things that I will point out is the recommendation does not allow non-charitable events, except or as approved by the board, as it was written before, in order to protect the permanent business owner's interest. And it also does not address itinerant vendors outside of an approved event, meaning food trucks or t-shirt or hot dog vendors or people that want to sell things on the beach or in beach accesses or things like that. And if that's something that the board would like to address, it should probably be addressed totally separately in a totally different section of the code, because that is not a special event. That's a more permanent business opportunity that the town, may want to look into, but it wouldn't fall under this. This is for, events that are, special events, not permanent, entities that would be possibly selling wares somewhere. So, and that is based on the direction I got from the last meeting, so I'll look back to you to see if I understood correctly. And we'll then bring you an ordinance that reflects, what we've put to paper. Oh, yeah, and, there was a lot of talk about what we have allowed in town. We included pages of, special events that have occurred in town. All of those events have been charitable. And when I say charitable, it means some portion was donated to a charity. And we have not, in the past 3 years that we found, ever denied a special event within Killable Hills that application was made for. We have a pretty easy process. We work well with people, and we can typically make their event happen, because we want their events to happen. So, but you'll see a list. It's pretty extensive, for what we've had in town, and, I'll leave it up to direction from the board.
The second bullet point mentions how the 10% parking, being forgiven, is applicable to both charitable and non-charitable events. Since charitable events non-charitable events potentially worked into this, maybe should we look at updating just the title of the application itself to special events instead of just charitable, and open it to all different types?
Sure. Not a problem. And when I say that the business would be charitable or non-charitable, I would assume that the business would be selling their wares, or like, some people have gift shops in their business, and they can put that outside for events, or they could have special things that are their business, not someone coming in and, popping up a tent and selling, whatever, but the business would be in control of it. They would make the who's selling what in their parking lot. And it would be like a yard sale type thing, like 4 times a year they could do it, and they could do it with Bike Week or the car shows or whatever they wanted to, marathon, just to be a part of these big events that happen. Even if they're not under that umbrella, they could still take advantage of some of the excitement that comes with these large community events that they would want to take advantage of. And yes, we can easily change the title of the application.
Yeah, 'cause that doesn't
That
make
is
it a
not a
little-
problem.
easier to, somebody may say that, so I don't think that a for-profit, non-charitable event may be excluded. 10% could be, I guess it's really a question for the board, could we be a little flexible depending on time of the year? Maybe in the winter, offer a little bit higher percentage of parking, to be excused, and maybe trim that down closer to summer. Still kind of, digesting events during the summer. I know previously we talked about kind of keeping the summer off limits for special events, but I'm kind of thinking the business owners know what's best for what they need to do, and they're gonna want to have events that reflect well on them and well on the town. If they wanted to use slightly more than 10% in the off-season for the event, maybe we could be a little flexible there to accommodate that. And once we get closer to summertime, maybe a little more restrictive. But I just saw a little flexibility with that, maybe could come into play as well.
I think there's such a huge variance in the amount of parking that
Yeah.
businesses have. I know one gentleman in the audience has got pretty small
He
parking.
does have
if
a
I'm
small
not
parking
mistaken.
spot.
Do you mind telling us how many parking spots you have?
12,
That's more than I thought, so 10% would be 1.2.
maybe 11, I don't know. Meredith,
That's a non-conforming parking lot.
Probably the smallest parking.
Well, it doesn't meet the minimum requirements. It's non-conforming.
So would that affect him being able to do, if he wanted to use one parking lot, if it's non-conforming, does that mean he could not do it? I'm just curious.
Probably.
It would be a little bit tight and, honestly, we'd have to see what he's trying to do.
I mean, legally, according to all
He doesn't meet
this.
required parking, so it's gonna depend on how far off he is on required parking. If he's one space off, then maybe he can use one space. If he's 15 spaces off, probably not.
and we'd be more willing to go, we wanna go somewhere else.
So,
I'm just curious, I mean,
No,
that's probably the lower end of it, and the higher end is, I guess, the shopping center
Sure.
on Belch or something.
but
There's a
within that
huge
shopping
variance.
center, every business has a required number of parking spaces. So they would be able to play in their required number, not the entire, center. That would be 100 spaces. But, blank business might be required to have 45 spaces. So they could use 4.5 of them for an event, which is 40 foot by 20 foot, which is a pretty good,
Yeah,
that's definitely 2 pop-ups.
That helps with the visual picture for
Right.
me, just trying to figure out
Right.
what we're talking about.
But if you don't meet required parking, depending on how far off, that 10% may not work for you. But
That puts it in perspective somewhat to me.
you can take 100
I mean,
parking spaces,
the average restaurant's gotta have at least 50, right?
unless they're non-conforming.
Or over-conforming.
Some are,
That's over-conforming.
not many.
Yes, I mean, but on average, it would be 3 to 5, somewhere in that range. I'm just,
It would just depend on how many
Yeah,
parking
sure.
spaces, but yeah. And every space is 10 foot wide and 20 foot deep, so.
that's pretty good.
I don't know if it would have to be written into the rule or not, but if it's a fraction of a parking place, we can round it up.
Round it up
It's
to
a half a car.
We typically round up.
motorcycle parking spot.
Yeah, if it's, Terry can do it, if it's a fraction car.
We had a pretty good, really good discussion, and I appreciated y'all's help with that, talking about one of my problems was the application, and when I read it, I'm like, wow, how would I come up with that information? And they said they were very helpful when people were trying to apply, and there are some things that may not be applicable if somebody was trying to apply, so I think
And-
that's,
and the
to
other
make this
thing
more
is some
friendly as possible.
Some things you might not fill out, but when it goes through review with the police department or the fire department, they might have recommendations like, well, this is gonna be a big event, you might wanna have an AED on site, and it elicits a discussion. If it's blank, they might have recommendations for you. If you've put something in there that maybe meets or doesn't meet, they might have recommendations for you to make a safe event, and it also allows them to know what you're gonna have on site, So if there is an emergency, they know what they're coming into, they know what's on site, and they know what they're, what they've got. So, it may not be applicable, but it also may be something that the recommendation would come from.
I think that would go a long way in making this application more user-friendly for a single business if they're applying, as opposed to what you were talking about, an event coordinator, that they know what you're looking for and they're used to it. So I just wanna make it sure that, a business owner can read it and go, oh, I can fill this out.
Right.
A couple more questions about this. I just wanted to verify, because this is my interpretation, that if itinerant vendors are covered in this application, if they wanted to do something in the commercial zone for the business that applied or permit,
As part of a special event.
as part of a special event, so.
So some of the special events you see on our list have had food trucks or the snow cone machine or, things like that. They're itinerant vendors and they're part of an umbrella of a special event. As far as an itinerant vendor being on a site all the time or weekly or something like that, that's no longer a special event. That's allowing itinerant vendors, and that's a different conversation from what we're doing.
Gotcha. I know the line here, these recommendations will not allow non-charitable events except as approved by the Board of Commissioners. I've given some thought to that conversation. Originally, we had talked about non-charity events being approved by the Board of Commissioners as they came up. I've kind of moved away from that opinion a little bit. I think if we have a very easy to interpret, user-friendly application, that we should empower the town and the town manager to approve that, and then we could be as a resource for an appeals process if for whatever reason one was denied. How do you all feel about that? Basically shifting the approval process for a non-charity event away from the Board of Commissioners and giving the town manager authority to decide.
Well, we have to dramatically make additional changes to our special events, because right now it doesn't even grant authority for staff to do that.
We don't have to do it for charitable,
But
right?
when we've allowed the businesses to have their outdoor sales 4 times a year in an event, that may take that pressure off, and that would be something that staff would approve. When we say non-charitable event, think a music festival that is 100% for profit. That's not something that staff can take away from a business venue that might play music on the weekends, that we're drawing their crowd out. That would be something for the board to decide, weighing the business community versus the community good. And that type of big non-charitable event would be better publicly known and publicly discussed. But the little small
That's what I'm referring to, the little,
pop-up, that's what we've addressed with the businesses
That's-
being
yeah.
allowed to have the pop-ups for their
That's what
own
I'm referring to.
business
Be able to-
during another event, as long as they let us know they're doing it, what event it is, and how long it's gonna be.
something large scale would need to come through. I'm referring to kind of the smaller stuff that we're discussing.
And I hope that's what the second bullet addresses for you. I hope. And if it doesn't, we'll try to put some clarifying language in there to make sure that that's clear.
I kind of agree with what you're saying. I don't think that, if you have a restaurant or if you have some sort of business that wants to do a special event, I don't really think it matters whether it's for charity or not for charity. They're the ones that are gonna make the application. They're the ones that are gonna, approve what goes in their parking lot. And it may be them, or it may be, something that is event specific that they wanna have there. For example, let's use, Bike Week, they might wanna put somebody selling leather, in a pop-up in their parking lot, and I think that's entirely fine. It could be a music festival or something that's going on, throughout the town, and, somebody could wanna sell, sheets of music or whatever. I don't think profit and nonprofit, I don't think really should be in the picture of that, just my opinion.
But do you all think what's covered in the second bullet would cover that? And if it doesn't, then you're also starting to look at a larger event. You're exceeding that 10%.
Yeah, the intent of the
I
second
think that
bullet.
it would, I think the second bullet would, but I don't, one particular hiccup I have with that is, I agree that you need to limit it to 5 days. I think that needs to be limited, but I'm not so sure that I agree with the 4 times a year. I don't know what significance that is, other than what you said about that's what's related to people having yard sales.
And that's what I attributed to, the yard sale is a
So I don't
single
know that I
family
really
for
have
profit.
concern there or not, you know, the four times a year. But I don't think that it needs to be, divided between profit and nonprofit, charitable events as far as coming to us. I think it can all be done administratively for staff. The approval.
Even the big events then? I mean,
No, not.
But how do you, if you don't have language distinguishing and you say they all should come, then again, that's where I go back to, we need to look at the full chapter, because that's not how, the way the wording is now would keep it to something small. There's not anything, if you're wanting to change and have everything go to the staff, then we need to look at other language in there, because nothing right now has a provision to keep it small.
Right, no, I wouldn't say that probably everything needs to go then, but just the smaller events, that's, for this second bullet, I think we probably handle that. But I don't think it needs to be defined as nonprofit or profit.
And
Right, and this
I don't
isn't,
Yeah, I
right,
don't think that
this would
has,
allow either.
yeah, I don't think that has any place in it, so.
And the way this is proposed, it wouldn't
Right.
be exactly how
number
you
two.
described, something,
The number
right,
two,
the
yeah.
second bullet.
Done a good job, making these small changes that are, make a big difference in the ease of someone applying for, that's just a small thing.
did we wanna start with 4 times a year, and if that proposes a problem, bring it back to the board and say we have had multiple applications that wanted to do 6 times a year, and then we can modify it from there and just have a starting point?
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
We're doing good sort of. I keep thinking about, I think you've done great with this so far. I mean, it's come a long way.
Keep thinking about restaurants for some reason, and I can't imagine them wanting one more than every 3 months. You know, you end up setting up something in their parking lot. I think that's significant.
And that's in addition to a special event they might have. That's in addition to a large special event that they might cater to. You know, they can have those too. So you're really looking at 8 to 9 events per year at, per coordinator, so one place could have, the brewing station has 12, 13 events, but it's multiple different charities that go in there, and then they could have 4 of their own if they wanted, for profit. So,
Gotcha.
see what I'm saying? So
So it depends on who applies,
correct.
whether it's the event person
If the
or
SBCA applies
or
to
the
have
business.
something at the brewing station, that doesn't count against the
I
brewing
didn't
station.
understand that at all.
It's the applicant. And then the brewing station can have their pop-up yard sale 4 times a year, so it's really almost unlimited.
I think you more than covered it. I didn't understand.
If a charitable event comes in, that goes to the charity. It doesn't go to the location of the event.
I got you.
We have multiple at the
Very
Navigation
sad.
Park. We'd be in violation of our own ordinance.
Other feedback or comments?
Just to clarify, that means that, say like every Wednesday, if a charity asks to have an event, that could be kind of the same setup in the commercial district. So like if it'd be, I guess, a special event, and then the
It would have to
charity.
be a different charity, because
Right.
otherwise they would run, but if it was a
Exactly.
different charity, 52 different charities throughout the year?
Yes, okay, cool, thank you.
Yeah, one more point, just to make sure I'm clear. So is a single charity limited to, as it is now, limited to a certain amount for?
4. A charity, so SPCA can have 4 a
Gotcha.
year in our town. I don't know what it's limited to
Yeah.
other towns. The hotline can have 4 a year. Any nonprofit charitable organization can have up to 4 a year.
Any applicant, basically.
And then the business itself can have 4 of its own yard sales per year.
You can fill one of these out.
Lots and
4
lots of
times a year.
times. You can just fill out the top and make copies and then do the description later.
work, thanks.
Thank you.
So we'll come back in June with a new ordinance for you guys for consideration. Okay?
Great.
Okay, we will move on then to new business. This is item number 1. This is the site plan review for the First Light Hotel LLC, proposed oceanfront amenity at 2029 South Virginia Dare Trail. We have copies of their submitted plans. This has gone to the planning board, who approved with a number of conditions. There's only one condition remaining, that being the lighting. All sides of the east building include covered deck and snack bar shall be lighted on all sides for security purposes. Welcome, how are you?
Good.
So, questions, comments, if you'd like to share with us first, and then,
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, we're finally getting to where we're ready to do the development on the oceanfront, for the Marriott. And, anxious to start construction. We really need it. 'Cause we're about a month away from the hotel opening and we gotta get something going across the street, so.
And the condition that was listed below has been addressed
wonderful.
tonight, so it's already in the works. So
Okay, great.
we had already gotten it straight, but I just got printed copies, so.
Great.
No concern there.
I noticed on the lighting page in the plan that, it looks like you have those short lights. That, what do you,
Yeah,
pillar
the
lights?
bollard
Yeah,
fixtures.
bollard lights, yeah. But I was concerned, I don't think I need to be since I looked at it, but about too much light spill over, into at the ocean and such.
I spent more time on this lighting plan than I spent on the whole rest of the site. I've probably tweaked this thing 10 times, trying to find, a combination of fixtures that would not, we don't want it bright over there,
You want to
obviously.
contain it, right?
Right, so the bollards have rear shields, so there's no light spill beyond those. The wall packs we're mounting low, we've got an 8-foot fence around it along with vegetated landscaping. So we're mounting the wall pack security lights really low, so those get intercepted by the fence. So, we've really struggled. It was a challenge to get a reasonable, foot candle level parking lot without overspill, and, but I think it's gonna be good. You'll be happy with it.
Yeah, I like the looks of those lights.
I do too. Yeah, they're really good. Not cheap, but they're nice.
I've got a question. This is kind of towards the whole project, and I was involved in the planning board and all that when it came through. And I'm curious, let's say we pass this site plan, like we did the hotel, but then there's things that you decided, well, we don't really want to do this now, we can leave it off. Like just, if I'm not mistaken, the original plan had balconies and all that. And now they're being left off. I'm surprised that can be done without going back through the planning board. If you're gonna delete certain things that were approved, because it does, and we're not supposed to be all doing anything about aesthetics, but it did, for me, it had an impact.
Yeah.
That I was concerned about when I saw it. So just like for this, if you say, well, we're gonna do the pool, but we're not gonna do the pool house now. How does the town approach that? Any ideas? I mean, it was just a
There was a
concern.
modification to the site plan that didn't increase gross floor area, and it was less than 50% of the site amenity, therefore it could have been approved administratively. It did not, as long as it met the current code, and it did not have any, it still met our architectural standards, and it didn't meet any of the requirements that sent it back to the planning board, board of commissioners, so it fell under the administrative review guidelines in our ordinance. It actually decreased gross floor area.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where those balconies got dropped. I don't remember exactly where we're at in the approval process when that decision was made.
I didn't think they came to the board with balconies.
I don't
they
think
went
they
to the
did
planning
either.
board with balconies and then came to you guys without balconies.
I think I was on the planning board at the
Yeah.
time,
So I believe that's the case.
so in my mind, it was gonna look
Yeah.
one way, and then when I ride down the road, it looks completely different. So that's just something that concerned me, and not you know, specifically this project, but any project, really.
It would still be an administrative approval because it doesn't increase the gross floor area.
And it's still being reviewed to, you know, to make sure it meets ordinance.
So
Answers my curiosity anyway, thank you.
Any other questions related to the site plan?
That's pretty straightforward, very.
Then a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion that we approve the First Flight Hotel LLC proposed oceanfront amenity area 2029 South Virginia Dare Trail.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I think I was gonna say more, didn't
And I was thinking we did have to include the, we did need to include the condition because it was already met, so we're good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I? You're screeching all day.
Yeah, we're all good. All right, we will move on then to item number 2, under new business. This is the Board of Adjustment vacancy. There's now a regular member vacancy, and Jason South, who is currently an alternate, has expressed interest in being appointed to that regular vacant position. If we choose to move forward with appointing Mr. South, then we would have a alternate position to fill. Open the floor for discussion or recommendations.
I think we should put Jason Self onto the board as a full member, regular member. I'll make that motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor, please say by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then how would the board like to address the alternate position?
I think Skip had an idea.
There's an applicant, and he's been in here quite a few times, and I'm trying to keep him involved, and I think he'd be great, and I can't even say his name, what,
Dylan Hikins.
Dylan
Hikins.
Hikins, excuse me.
Okay. That's great.
And I'm not sure if he even applied for that position.
He did,
You
yes.
did.
He did, okay,
Yeah.
great,
You would have to submit an application for us to consider him, but he did, so he's covered.
so I
Yeah,
would
it's
like to,
Heikens, Heikens, I guess. We'll ask him.
he's shown a lot of interest and been to a lot of meetings, and to me, that's
Yeah.
kind of person I would like to have.
Would you like that to be a motion?
I would, I
Okay.
would like to make that motion, please.
Alright, so there's a motion to appoint Dylan to the alternate position. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
Good job, good idea.
Okay,
She was here.
then also under new business, item number 3 is the selection of procedures to move forward with establishing the West Side Recreation Committee. If you recall at our last meeting, we had a nice presentation on, all the amenities that we do have throughout the town and some ideas on potential uses, programming, etc. And the board made the decision to create this new ad hoc committee, modeling it after the Baum Track Site Study Committee that was in place a few years ago. So Debbie has brought back in the memo some suggestions for us to, or considerations for us to discuss, so we can give these recommendations back to move forward with this. I think one of the things to discuss is the size of this, and then how do we want to make appointments? Do we want an application process like what's put in here? This was modified after what was used for the Baum Track. So, just pause and open it for discussion.
I support the application process, which is, makes the applicant show a little more initiative just being appointed. Do we have to I kind of like to put the application process out there, see how many applicants we get, and then decide on how large we want the group to be. Because if we have a large number of very strong candidates, we may not want to limit it to 5. We may want it to be 7. I think 9 is a lot, but 7, if we get enough people interested, we may want to go that route. But if we don't get enough applicants, I hate to have a 7-person board and then have to do some recruitment.
You can always add later.
Yeah.
I was leaning towards 7 or 9. I mean, I think the Baum Track was that 11 or?
11.
And the reason is when you're looking at getting perspectives. I think 5 is way too small. I mean, you really wanna have multiple, lots of different perspectives on, this has the implication, just like with the bomb trap, of really shaping a lot of use and direction for the town. I would be fine with 7 or 9, because I think getting lots of perspective. And if you don't get enough interest initially, it may grow over time as they start hearing what this group is doing after the first few meetings. I know with the bomb track, just because it was really exciting project, and people also are often more inclined to submit an application for an ad hoc task force type work, because they know it doesn't go on forever. And you're gonna get people hopefully that are energized about that particular task and focus versus sometimes it's much bigger and more nebulous, so.
I agree with the application process. If it's kind of slow, we could each solicit people that put applications in, people that we know that we think might be interested. We can try to talk them into doing it, if it gets to that.
I'm good with the application. I like 7 as a big number. Let's start out.
Start with 7, and more quality folks come up, we can have.
7, and we like the application process. The timeline, we'd go ahead and get this out, and have applications due back by Friday the 14th, so we could potentially take action at our July meeting. Does that sound like everybody fine with the timeline?
Sure.
Okay,
Friday the 14th of June.
of June.
Okay, yeah, all right.
That way it gives staff time to process the applications, get them to us, we could review them and actually make some decisions possibly at the July meeting.
That's good.
And again, Debbie and staff have done an excellent job. Mary's worked very hard on this, and appreciate the work. Very good.
Thank you all. Mary, have we left anything out? Do we have everything that we need to move forward?
Nothing that needs to be done tonight.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Then the last thing under new business is the town manager's recommended budget, and Sean and Debbie are both here. I know Debbie wasn't sure if she was gonna make it back in time, so Sean was filling in, but
Well, yes, we're presenting the town manager's recommended budget for 2019-2020. Historically, the Board of Commissioners has conducted a budget workshop prior to the budget public hearings, and if that's the desire of the board, we recommend work session being held on Monday, May the 20th at 8 o'clock. Which is the date and time, our second regular meeting of the month. Public hearing could be scheduled for Monday, June the 10th at 5:30. So if that's,
Was that 8 AM or
8
PM?
a.m., that's right, 8 a.m.
well, and so this, the board, we've been emailing trying to find, and I appreciate everyone's flexibility in looking at dates, I really genuinely do. Whatever date we set, then really the bulk of our next meeting agenda is really a budget workshop, and if there's any other business that we need to conduct, we would do it at that time. And it really is the pleasure of the board. I think we all agreed May 20th could be an alternate date. Doesn't matter to me if we start at 8 or 8:30, if there's a better time. And if the town opens at 8, obviously staff will work with us in whatever we need, but it really, whatever we wanna set, then we would publish, so. And if you guys feel strongly what works best for you.
If we did 8:30, then we'd have to come in earlier than regular start.
Yeah, that sounds more accommodating for staff, so I'm with you.
8 o'clock, you better have some ham and eggs.
8:30 gives you time to run down the street, maybe. So we will then, our next meeting will be Monday, May 20th at 8:30, and that is when we will also, the bulk of the agenda, like I said, would be the budget workshop. So just quick note on this, with this being the recommended budget for the next fiscal year, and then the planned budget, so it's a 2-year budget to take a look at. The more homework that you can do between now and Monday, the better. Just, I know there were some emails too about how long these meetings typically go. If you review this and start, if you have detailed questions, being able to meet with Debbie or Finance Department or Sean just to anything that you can, if it's confusing or you haven't seen it before, or where did this come from, they're most accommodating to meet with us between now and then. It would make the 20th move quicker. Not that we're in any rush for it, but just the more prepared we can be by going through this, which is a lot of homework between now and then. But it's really our biggest job of the year each year is this. So looking forward to going through it, because as always, I know staff does a phenomenal job preparing this for us, but there may be things that we need to weigh in, and really the focus of what we should be doing when we come to the 20th is, if there's things in there that we're not comfortable with, having the discussion to reach a compromise amongst ourselves of what are we comfortable with moving forward with the budget, so. We'll do that on Monday. Great.
Right, and a motion would be in order to set the budget workshop and budget public hearing.
Okay, so a motion would be to set the budget workshop, schedule that at 8:30 on Wednesday, May 20th, but then keep our public hearing, that would be scheduled for, I'm sorry, what did I say, Monday, yes, Monday, May 20th at 8:30, and then the public hearing for Monday, June 10th at 5:30.
Correct.
So everyone's still good with that, with that motion? Okay, that was a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Just to confirm, that was May 20th at 8:30.
May 20th at 8:30 for the budget workshop.
Mayor, can you make that
There's
motion?
a highlights in this book here.
Mayor,
They do.
You made the motion now?
I did make the motion,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
But,
I was-
yeah, there's normally a great brief at the
Is there a
beginning.
list of highlights in here somewhere that I can?
All right, let's see. We'll move on then to committee reports. We have a committee report this evening. Move to commissioner's agenda. Did I jump? Okay. Gary, you start with commissioner's agenda? Okay, Skip.
The only thing I would bring up is, I'd walk around the new neighborhood over there in Landing, where it's called now, and there's a lot of bad information. I mean, people talk to me all the time. They don't even know I'm a commissioner at first, and they're all telling me how they're afraid their property's gonna flood, and all. I would try to assure them that our town engineer has looked at the issues and where it's moving and all that, but I'm shocked how much misinformation is out there. Of course, like today, I said, well, there's a meeting tonight, why don't you come get involved, I'll see you there. And then what he wants to bother, so I'm not sure how we could change, what we can do to make that better, other than, one-on-one whenever I see someone, but it's, I don't know where to go with it really, other than it'd be nice to inform people what has been done, to look out for their interests that they're not aware of, because they don't come to the meetings, but I don't know, it's just a concern I had, and I just thought I would mention it. Not sure what the answer is.
that's been a issue as long as I can remember, is trying to get people to meetings, and if I'm remembering correctly, last year we had, we approved the budget, had a meeting when nobody spoke about the budget, which is fine, which maybe means we did our homework and we did a good job, which is fine. But then you have something about my nemesis, the chickens, and there's people standing outside. I mean, I know it's kind of crazy, but if it's dogs on the beach, or if it's chickens, or any number of things, the people will be here, and they manage to hear about it. But if it's just routine stuff, they figure as long as we're doing a good job, I think that's an illustration of that, I hope. But it is a problem, but we do stuff with Facebook and our website, and I know there's lots of comments on our site, and each of us individually comment and forward and share things, and I don't know if there's a whole lot more we can do, but your point is well taken.
Thank you.
Just, I wanted to echo something you shared this morning, just all the positive attention and good press that the the handicap beach access of Ocean Bay Drive has gotten. I grew up in Bath, North Carolina, and all our local channels come from the Greenville market, and they have been running media on it and televised programs on that access. And all those wonderful comments on Facebook, 'cause it really has struck a chord. It's really nice to hear and see, Kildare Hills get such positive, nice press. That surprised me. It was really good to hear. I had the pleasure on Saturday morning of getting up bright and early and volunteering at the Nags Head Woods 5K race, 36th annual Nags Head Wood 5K. It's the longest running running race on the Outer Banks. And what really, really neat this year is that I with North Banks Rotary, who we organized the event, and we had a tremendously strong turnout through the Go Far campaign. Tons and tons of kids. Overcook bought a bus, having every single kid from Overcook, because it was so many came up to run in that race. And all the local schools had a very strong turnout. I haven't had a chance to get a hold of the exact numbers, but I was really pleased and encouraged to see how many kids in this community are, so dedicated to fitness and running and enjoying the outdoors. So it was a real fun, pleasant Saturday morning. I'm glad Abby did it at 8:30 in the morning too, instead of noon, because the heat and the bugs would have won the race had we waited much longer that day. That's all I have to share.
I just wanted to say, I think we had a great program this morning for the dedication, and we had a really good turnout. And we had a little bit of rain, but it didn't dampen our spirits. It was good, and it's a great facility, and it's dedicated to a good friend.
That's great. Under Mayor's agenda, there's one item in your packet this evening. It's a resolution and proclamation. Peace Officers Memorial Day was born on October 1st in 1961, when Congress asked the President to designate May 15th to honor law enforcement officers. And back then, President Kennedy signed the bill into law on October 1st, 1962. Designating May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the corresponding calendar week of each year as Police Week is a practice that has continued ever since, and we're currently in the middle of Police Week. According to the concerns of police survivors, about 140 to 160 officers are killed in the line of duty each year, and that's what really is why this particular week and putting this as a resolution and proclamation is so important, to draw attention and help increase awareness of the important role that our officers play in communities, certainly here in Kildare Hills and across the state and nation. And with that, I'll make a motion that we adopt the proclamation for National Police Week, May 12th through the 18th, 2019, and Police Officer Memorial Day, May 15th, 2019.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. And Chief and Assistant Chief, thank you, and please share this with your officers and send our appreciation.
Thank you, Mayor.
Also, there's two items. Also in your packet was a meeting schedule change. You may, another one. And this is for our July meeting with the runoff and the Republican primary. There's now going to be a special election here on Tuesday, July 9th. That's for the runoff. And so they typically come in, it's a lot to set up and be prepared for early morning starting voting. So that conflicts with our July 8th meeting. So I don't know if you all checked your calendars. So that's, typically we would meet on a Monday, which is July 8th. Didn't know if we first want to look at just moving to Wednesday, July 10th, if that's a possibility, because the election would be cleaned up and moved on. Is that a possibility for everyone? We keep it in the same week?
Wednesday's good.
Wednesday's good. Okay. Do we need a motion, or can we just do that? A motion, okay. So I'll make a motion that we change our July. We only meet once in July, so we make our July meeting on Wednesday, July 10th at 5:30.
Second.
Motion a second, any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. And I too will echo, this morning was absolutely wonderful. And thank you, staff, all of your hard work to pull it off, and refreshments. And there's donuts here if you haven't had dinner, or even if you have, take some home for dessert. Duck Donuts and Mako Mike's had the refreshments this morning, and we have some left over, so help yourself. With that, we will move on to the town manager's agenda.
Mayor, I have nothing on the town manager's agenda.
Okay, thank you. Town attorney's agenda.
That's for me, Mayor.
Then back to you, Sean, for the consent agenda.
Three items on the consent agenda, and that's the minutes for the April 24th Board of Commissioners meeting, the monthly report for March 2019, and a sponsorship agreement for the in-kind donation at the disc golf course for Darrell Davies. This agreement is for construction of sponsorship of a bench at the disc golf course at the value of $500. Approval of the consent agenda will record this item as an in-kind service agreement. The staff recommends approval of the consent agenda as presented. A motion from the board.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we are back to the second time set aside this evening for public comment. Who would like to speak? Colleen, you want to speak again?
I did.
Welcome back up.
Chip is thrilled.
He's hungry, I think.
I know, I am
For
too.
dinner.
I wanted to say something to Skip's point about having some, neighborhood angst about this new development. And when they were building the Lowe's, when we lived on Porthole Court, we had a lot of concerns about through traffic, and we were trying to, figure out what we wanted versus what we were allowed to do versus what the town wanted to do. It was very complicated. And at that point, I'm trying to remember if it was either 2 or 3 members of the Board of Commissioners actually came to our street, laid the maps out on the back of the car, and we all kind of stood as a group and had a conversation and got on one page about how we wanted to move forward. And I think if there's really a contingency of people that are really upset, why not go to them? Put one person in charge and say, hey, pick a night, we're gonna have some representatives out there, let's sit and talk about it, and sit and talk about it. No, that was just my suggestion. Thanks.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this public comment?
Now we're still on.
Yeah, actually, that's next, and, yeah.
Was that before or after that it was done, was it-
Before.
And unfortunately now it's kind of after the.
But it's an
the
opportunity
information, right?
to clear the air, for sure.
Yeah.
And one of the big things, and I think that's where it struggles too, you may hear, like, the Porthole Court contingency back then was very vocal and did come to meetings and did express, so the board knew who they were to address, and that's one thing that I don't know how this is coming apart. I mean, and we did have a few that came to a couple of the meetings, but I think,
I think that's the
Meredith, were you
problem.
Staff has met with a lot of the neighbors on site and discussed the development. And we'll meet with anybody who calls and has questions. And we do have plans, and we're able to talk to them about the stormwater and the stormwater system that was installed and put their mind at ease. So we have met with people, and if you wanted people that come to you, if you wanna direct them, we'll come to them. We'll come out to the site and meet with them. If you just wanna send them to us, we'll be happy to do that for you.
Okay, thanks.
and I think to your point, maybe some people watching this will hear that we do wanna hear from them, and we know, but if we don't hear from them, we don't know who they are that has the concern, so, that's where the misinformation or miscommunication is. We don't know if they don't
Yeah,
speak up, so.
It's either complain about it or do something and come to the meeting. I mean, it's shocking to me sometimes.
I'd also like to say, Pauline, a similar situation happened on Sixth Avenue where I live. We moved there in 1987, and it was a dead-end street. And there was nothing beyond us all the way to Collington Road. That was all woods back then. That was part of the town's 322 acres, I believe, that Diane Baum St. Clair sold us. Sold it for $2 million and then donated $500,000 back, which was quite a bargain at the time. But anyway, myself and a few neighbors were concerned about the traffic that would be coming because the schools were being built. And we came to meetings and talked, and everything was nice and congenial, and we ended up with a compromise that has worked for everybody since. And that's, like you say, that's, hopefully with situations like this, that's what people, they should do. Either come here and talk to us, or call and talk to Meredith and meet somebody on the site and find out what's going on, because generally it can be solved. And yeah, sure, we would rather still be on a dead end or not, but there was a good compromise, and the traffic on our street is limited somewhat because of that, so it works.
The only thing I had is please tell your wife happy birthday, because hopefully you'll get out of here early enough to take her to dinner. Yeah. Anyone else have anything for tonight? Did anyone else want to speak at public comment though? Or don't want to cut anyone off? All right, well with that, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Let's do it.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.